The purpose behind this presentation is to demonstrate the use of an interactive checklist, in this case a GST logic check. This is not about trying to explain the nature of GST and its reconciliation. It's about demonstrating how an electronic form can allow an owner of a bookkeeping firm or an accountancy practice to provide both quality control in terms of the accuracy of their processing and reducing the risk of substantial error, as well as providing a learning curve for staff by getting them to think, junior staff we're talking about here, about GST from a holistic perspective and that of logic and conceptual analysis type viewing of things, rather than simply a bunch of numbers. The accountant bookkeeper who simply looks at this as a bunch of numbers generally don't develop the analytical skills you sort of enjoy when you have quality staff. So the final point then is that this particular form is easy to design. If you're running a practice or a bookkeeping firm, you will know those areas that worry you in terms of the accuracy of your work, what staff should or shouldn't know. These forms are interactive. They don't take long to design. This one's built out of Adobe's Acrobat. All you need to do is learn how to do a form fill, learn how to do a calculation field, and you can make the form interesting. Finally, the form has notes. So I just want to quickly go through it, though, as I've said, the idea behind these forms is that you will do a form that suits your particular needs. It's just that it's very flexible. So in this case, we're just trying to get the GST looked at from an analytical perspective. You want your junior staff member to think analytically, not just a bunch of numbers. So you've asked them to put in the expected GST on sales for the year. In this case, we'll put in 50,000. In this field here, there's a little note that pops up. You don't particularly need to see it. The point is that the note can be tailored to exactly what you want to say about this field. In this case, it's just warning the graduate that be careful when you put the 50 in that you have understood whether it's accrual basis or cash basis GST. We'll then go and put some GST on plant and equipment. We'll say there was $2,000 worth of that. GST on capital, let's say there was none there. GST on expenses, let's say that was $49,000. And again, there's a note on this, a little bit more detailed, this note. And again, what this note's doing is pointing out that you have to be careful when you do the expenses in your estimation to remove things like depreciation, interest, of course, because they don't have GST. Now that note could be a written note, as is in the case here. It could be an audio file where the junior staff member clicks and they can hear you talk to them quickly about what should go in that field. GST on purchases of capital, so on plant and equipment, we'll put in there's a new car, let's say, $4,500. No capital. So the net effect for the year in this particular case is that we have an expected GST refund for this client of $1,500. Now that's a critical number because that's roughly what should happen. Your staff member then will know that it's only an estimate. They will then go to the BAS returns, and let's say you go to the BAS returns and that shows that $2,200 has been paid for the year. Well, there's a significant imbalance between those two. We've got a $3,700 refund position, so it looks, with this particular client. Now the form can be added to. You could easily add a field now that calculates that difference of 3,700 and then specifically asks your junior staff member to now go and do a full GST reconciliation. There is one on the site, but again, the purpose of these is just to demonstrate the use of the forms. The critical thing about these forms is that it makes life more interesting for the graduate, because they can be mentored electronically. You don't have to be there to explain this to them. It doesn't take long to do this, and it can go a long way to reducing those areas that you worry about. My experience with public practice and bookkeeping is there's always a few areas that can cause significant problems. So these checklists can form part of your quality control system to reduce that possibility. Finally, remember, this is part of an expert system platform. That means that this form is made available to your staff, not because they know where it is, but because every time they do a job, when they go through the GST, these forms are automatically presented to them. They're generated via the software as they do a job. And again, the details of how this is done is on the site.